GTN Radio. Hear the difference. Now the news. I'm Tian Yu. The UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees says the humanitarian situation of over 2 million people in Gaza is at risk of worsening after 16 countries stopped financial support to the agency. UNRWA officials also say the agency may be forced to shut down its operations by the end of February if it does not receive funding soon. Meanwhile, the Gaza-based health ministry says the number of Palestinian deaths from the ongoing Israeli attacks on the Gaza Strip has exceeded 27,000. Sally Patterson reports.
UNRWA is the largest humanitarian organization in Gaza. The United Nations says without it, it's difficult to imagine how Gazans will survive. On Thursday, the agency said now is the time to reinforce, not weaken, UNRWA. Tens of thousands of people have been forced to flee south due to bombardment and fighting in the city of Khan Yunis over the last week. And food and aid are scarce. This humanitarian crisis escalated after UNRWA employees were accused of participating in or aiding Hamas's October 7th attacks on Israel. Since the allegations came to light last month, 16 countries have paused financial aid to UNRWA, worth around $440 million, according to the UN. The United Nations says it's launched an investigation and, quote, full accountability and transparency are expected out of this process.
Yemen's Houthi forces have claimed responsibility for launching a new missile attack against a British commercial vessel in the Red Sea. A Houthi military spokesperson said the commercial ship was heading to Israel. The spokesperson also said operations against Israel in the Red Sea will continue until Israel stops its war on Gaza and lifts its siege on the Palestinian people. It is the third attack claimed by the armed Houthi group in less than 24 hours. On Wednesday night, the Houthi group claimed responsibility for missile attacks against the U.S. Navy warship in the Red Sea and another U.S. commercial vessel in the Gulf of Aden. European Union leaders have unanimously agreed to provide an additional 50 billion euros in aid for Ukraine. The agreement comes after weeks of negotiation overcoming Hungary's veto. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has welcomed the decision, saying the aid will strengthen Ukraine's long-term economic and financial stability. The deal includes a yearly discussion of the package and the option to review it in 2 years if needed. Ross Cullen reports.
Yeah, after weeks of Hungarian resistance, lasted half an hour. This time round, a surprisingly short summit. After just 30 minutes, Robin, they agreed this deal for $54 billion for support for Ukraine, to pay pensions, to pay salaries, other economic necessities. Roughly $33 billion in loans and $17 billion in grants agreed. They are going to have the chance to review this every year at the European Council level, and potentially in 2026, the European Commission could also review to make sure that funding facility for Ukraine remains within the European Commission spending limits.
The head of the UN nuclear watchdog will visit the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant in Ukraine next week. The International Atomic Energy Agency says Director General Rafael Grossi will discuss the facility's safety issues. Grossi will hold high-level talks in the Ukrainian capital on Tuesday before heading to the nuclear plant. A Russian official says the country is not planning to deploy nuclear weapons in other countries. Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov affirms Moscow's commitment to refraining from deploying nuclear weapons in countries beyond the existing stations in Belarus. In March last year, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Russia would deploy its tactical nuclear weapons in Belarus at the request of Minsk, just as the United States had been doing on the territories of its allies. A U.S. federal judge has ruled that California can't enforce a law requiring people to undergo background checks before buying ammunition, saying it violates the constitutional right to bear arms. It is the second time that Roger Benitez has struck down the same law, which went into effect in 2019. He previously declared the law unconstitutional in April 2020. Official data shows China's general public budget revenue increased 6.4% to exceed 21 trillion yuan, or over $2.9 trillion in 2023. The country's general public budget spending expanded 5.4% to more than 27 trillion yuan. That's the news. I'm Tian Yu.